So I'm doing a tutorial here about the texturing theory. A lot of times I get students basically bringing in these, simple objects. And simple is fine. You can do a lot with a simple object and a base texture. So this is basically thinking about the theory behind it. And I get a lot of people going, "Oh, I'm going to make a chest," and they just take this basic everyday texture pattern and they just toss it on there, and it's that's all it boils down to is this everyday simple texture pattern. There's nothing special about it. They've got it UV mapped on there, so it tiles or whatever, and a lot of times I'll get textures that don't even tile well, but that's not the point. The point is you need to really think about what your object is. So if I'm making a crate is not just a wooden block. A crate is more than that. It's boards. And so a lot of times people, will just toss on boards textures and say, okay, there's my crate. I'm done with that. And that's pretty much all I want to do. And that's not the right way to go about it. Especially what happens is a lot of times they'll toss a UV map on, and they'll do a good job of unwrapping, and in this case, what I've done is I've basically given the top more definition, and I've put the sides and the tighter together, and then the bottom, since I'll never see the bottom in this particular crate, I scaled it down, so I don't need to work too hard on the texture for that. But they sit there and they toss this base texture on, and they have to say, oh, this is my crate, and it's not. It's a base texture on a box. So then occasionally I'll get uh, students who actually sit down and take the time out to create a texture that is put on the box, and the box, this is the texture. And again, the problem is, again, they don't think about the actual crate. If this is a crate, you have to start thinking about construction methods. How is this thing built? It's a box, yes, but what happens when you need to take this box and portray that box to something else? Well, in this case, I've looked at this box and it's got one vertical and one horizontal. So that's the first thing that I want to go fix. I want to go add that texture so that it's horizontal. It's not a vertical texture. And now the problem with this is, yeah, I've got four sides and I've got four sides, but the problem I have right off the bat is that I've got no construction methods. How is this built? So that's where the next step comes in. The next step is adding, the construction. So now I've got framing around it, but the problem is if you look at said framing, the problem is it doesn't really seam up well on the corners. I mean, it doesn't feel like there's certain corners that are overlapping. It doesn't feel anything along that lines. So at this stage, what I need to do is I need to basically trim and take down the sides. Now you can see where I've got construction methods. Now I've got 2x4s laying there. And that is kind of the key point when you're doing this stuff. Think about how things are built. Now I've got construction methods. I can see the 2x4 going across. I can see the framing around the box. I can see all of that stuff. But if I'm only using a 2D texture, what you need to start thinking about is form. I can't show shadows on this, so I have to do my own shadows. And that's where basically I start putting in shadows. And the shadows will basically give the illusion, and it's not going to be the greatest texture. This is, where high poly textures, high poly objects. But the idea, now I'm starting to see depth in this. I see that the light's hitting the top, and the top of it is basically um, casting shadows here and here, and it's coming apart now. Now that being said, then you need to think about more about construction methods. So here, all I've done was just made nails. I put nails in it. Now it looks like I've someone's been pounding on it with a hammer, or You know, it's got some form of how things are put together in it. And it's simple, but you get the point. It's adding more detail to the structure so that you can actually create a texture now with a logic behind it. And then the next thing is, you know, you have to start giving the box a story. Yes, it's a crate, but you know, it's sitting in a warehouse. It's going to get dirty. It's going to collect dust. You know, so adding things like that will help. You know, and I've just added real quick, you know, textures. But you need to tell the details of the story. And in this, you know, I've added some green. I've got some dripping texture going on. I've added like a piece of paper on top, like a manifesto or something like that. And these are all things that you need to really think about when you're creating this stuff. Now, these textures, this whole textures, I probably took about 25 or 30 minutes to do. I did it all out of one base texture and a couple brushes. You know, so I've pretty much got all my textures, and it took about 25 minutes to cut it down. So instead of doing this or this, you know, this is the kind of detail that you need to have in order to sell the texture. And like I said, this is just a box. It's not even indented inside here. It has you know, it has no polygons other than the 6 that I created with it. But at least now it has a sense of story or sense of object. You know, whereas if I zoom out, this would be a great map for, you know, an LOD. You know, because it gives you the illusion that this is an object and it's got detail. You know, so that is what I'm really looking at for textures, is not just the object itself, but where has this been? What has it done? You know, give me the construction methods on how this block has been built, or this crate has been built, and that type of information will really help out with your texturing ability, is if you can tell a little story behind the crate. You know, now the crate has been, you know, it's got construction methods. It was nailed together in the factory. It's, you know, it's got something leaking from it. It's been traveled because it's got dirt and grime and a little mold on it. And it's got a manifesto, so it's been shipped someplace, you know, and those are the details that I'm looking for when I look at texture maps. All right?